Hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, I'm going to be presenting you guys my October 2020 forecast. Now before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Alright, now for today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think that October is going to be cold like September was, or do you think October will give way to some warmer than normal conditions? Let me know the area you live in, and let me know what you think, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now let's get into this video, and we're going to need to be talking about that precipitation forecast for October. And first things first, we have a slightly above average precipitation region here from the Carolinas all the way up through the mid-Atlantic into the Northeast and New England states. And that's where we're anticipating a few nor'easters, like I said in yesterday's video. Those early nor'easters in the month of October, we're just going to set all of these areas up for a really good chance at having above average precipitation. So that's why they get the slightly above average region. Alright, now what we're going to do here is move on and talk about our second slightly above average precipitation region. And as you can see, it's for the Pacific Northwest and through the Northern Rockies, and then a bit of California as well, which is a bit of a surprise, but that is how it looks to go according to most climate models, so I've decided to throw them in it as well. If you watched our Who Will See Snow in October video, you've seen a lot of kind of precursors to how this October forecast would go. I'm staying very true to my thoughts back in that video as well. So if you want to check that video out as well, you can find it on my channel. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to talk about our moderately above average area of precipitation, and then start talking about the below average precipitation. Then finally, we're going to get into the temperature forecast and overall forecast. Alright, now here we are talking about that moderately above average precipitation, and as you can see, it's going to be there for Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. So this is a region that we've been talking about since we've started making our fall forecasts, and some precursors to October as well. We've talked about how this northwestern region of the United States does look to have some above average precipitation. And the other thing is we're getting later in the year, so we need to start talking about how this actually will affect the snowfall for the Rocky Mountains, and I do think that we could see some extra snowfall for let's see, Oregon, Washington, maybe the mountains of California as well. This time of year it's kind of iffy. Then we see Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming as well. Those are definitely regions where I do expect we could see some above average snowfall due to this, above average precipitation coming through. And again, that's another thing I talked about in that Who Will See Snow in October video, which I highly recommend, and it's directly related to this video as well, so it makes a lot of sense for you to go ahead and watch that. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we're actually going to move on, and we're going to begin talking about that below average precipitation, talk about where it will be more dry. So here we are taking a look at that slightly below average precipitation region, and as you can see, it extends for a lot of the middle portion of the United States. One of the key things here that I really put in there very, very deliberately, regardless of what the models and the anomalies were showing, is I really held off from letting this one touch the Gulf Coast. With October, we're going to have the rising air motion for the tropics. I really don't want to go out and say that we're going to have below average precipitation when there's the chance of a tropical system coming in and giving you guys like 200% of your average precipitation. So I really, really held off on that, and I hope that makes sense, because really, if you don't see any tropical systems, yeah, you probably will see below average precipitation just based on the pattern we're in. But there's a really good chance that we see at least some regions there get some sort of tropical impacts, whether it's a tropical depression, tropical storm, hurricane, I don't know. But either way, they do bring tons of rainfall with them and would push you into the average or above average column very, very easily. But as you can see, for a lot of the Four Corner states, the plains, especially the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes there, all of these regions are expecting to have some slightly below average precipitation. Also, this usually leads to some quicker and more vibrant fall colors, that below average precipitation, just a tiny bit, not going to impact it as much as temperatures would, but you will see some impacts there. Let's go ahead and take a look at that moderately below average precipitation region, and as you can see, it's there for Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, portions of Alabama, all the way through Arkansas, and even into northern Louisiana and northeastern Texas there, a little sliver, and then we see Oklahoma and Kansas getting involved there as well in that moderately below average precipitation. And again, this is another one of those areas that if it wasn't for the tropics, like let's say this was December or January, I would be calling for this all the way down to the Gulf Coast. But it's just very slim odds that we don't see any sort of tropical impacts there for the Gulf Coast. So I really don't want to put you guys in that below average precipitation column when I think there's a really good chance that we have a surprise storm that comes through and does not allow that to happen. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to start talking about the temperature forecast. Where are we expecting some colder temperatures and where are we expecting some warmer temperatures? Stay tuned to find out. Alright, so as you can see, we have below average temperatures for the eastern United States, and if you've been watching our videos for maybe the past week or so, that shouldn't be a surprise to you whatsoever. We've been talking about this for perhaps a week or two, that there is going to be some really cold temperatures that come in, especially for that earlier portion of October. The later portion is a little bit more of a toss-up, but believe it or not, that's how these monthly forecasts usually go. Usually you can see the first half really well, and then the second half, well, not so well. So my method has always been to use mostly that first half of the month and then use the second half of the month as a little sliver of influence on the forecast, but really that first half, if you can nail that down, you're most likely going to get the whole forecast right. So here we are talking about that below average temperatures all the way from the upper Midwest through the Great Lakes, through the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, New England, Mid-Atlantic, down through the Southeast, and down through the deep south into the south central United States. I really could have just said this, the eastern half of the United States. I don't know why I didn't. Anyway, so all of these areas are expecting at least slightly below average temperatures, and it really, if anywhere, looks like it could hold on for the whole month being mostly below average. It's kind of that southeastern corner there, perhaps the more central regions. The upper Midwest and Great Lakes, there has been some trends that later in the month, maybe some warm temperatures trying to go over top and trying to influence those areas a little bit. That's the only reason they're in the slightly below average temperature region, because other than that, it looks like there could be some quite potent even Arctic blasts that come through, very early season Arctic blasts. And an Arctic blast is defined by an area from the very Arctic Circle blasting all the way down to the United States. So very potent cold air is usually associated with those. And that appears to be possible. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the moderately below average temperature region here. And as you can see, the Ohio Valley and more of the interior regions is where we're more confident that we will see the more consistent cold. And these areas could be a little bit colder than the surrounding regions as well. I'm very confident in this, and like I said, at least for the first 14 days, this is very, very solid. I'm almost positive this is going to occur this way. The second half, like I said, is more of a toss-up, although the trend is that it will remain at least somewhat close to this. We did have a pattern like this, I guess, from the middle portion towards a little bit later into the month, maybe till about the 21st of September. So about a week ago, it came to an end. We had a very cold pattern, but what you have to remember is your average temperatures are going down by 10 degrees Fahrenheit every single month this time of year because we're heading towards winter. So let's say it happens this time, like let's say a big cool down that lasts a long time happens on October 15th. It's going to be 10 degrees colder Fahrenheit if that was to occur than the one happened in September. I hope that makes sense. I keep trying to say that, but I feel like I can't really find the words to say it perfectly, but I really, really hope that makes sense. The further into the year we get, the more meaningful these big cooldowns are that bring those below average temperatures because your actual average is lower. Your actual average is actually lower. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the above average temperatures real quick, and then we're going to get into the very exciting overall forecast, so I hope you stay tuned for that. Alright, so first things first, here is our slightly above average temperature region, and as you can see, California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, all of the west coast there, through the four corner states, and just to the east of the Rockies, we're all expecting to have some above average temperatures. Just like I've been talking about the cold temperatures in the east for about a week, I've also equally been talking about that positive P&A pattern that the west coast looks to get in coming up. Again, at least for that first half, we look to hold on to the very warm temperatures for the west coast. And it's going to be really hard to undo that once we get later in the month because it's going to be so far above normal. It would take far below normal temperatures to even bring it back to average. That's why I'm so confident that we're going to have above average temperatures out west. So let's go ahead and add that moderately above average temperature region. And as you can see, it's mostly for the four corner states, the Rockies, and portions of Nevada and Oregon as well. Is this going to influence snowfall? Well, a little bit. Mostly the precipitation will. But we can see further south there, like New Mexico, Colorado, it's probably going to influence you guys a lot more than it will Idaho and Montana. Also, Idaho and Montana are going to have the above average precipitation. It's so cold on those mountaintops, I don't really know if it'll influence the snowfall too much. All right, so let's get right into the overall forecast. And as you can see, we're going to just work our way from west to east. And first things first, up there in the Pacific Northwest, I love talking about you guys first for some reason. We're expecting stormy conditions. Again, the above average precipitation moving in is going to bring some quite potent storms. We're getting to that time of year for you guys where we get a lot of storms. Just to the south of you, though, we expect warm and dry conditions down there for California, with the exception of the mountain ranges where we can see some precipitation. To the east of you, much warmer than normal, as you saw just now on our temperature forecast. We are expecting some far above normal temperatures to be possible for this region. And to the north of you, it should still be snowy. Those mountaintops are so cold already that even with the above normal temperatures, it appears you guys will still see that really big snowfall this time of year. And also with the above average precipitation, those two things coupled together is not a good recipe if you don't like snow. Let's move it just a little bit further east. We see that yellow region down there for Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. That's our flip-flop pattern. You guys are going to go from warm to cold, back and forth all the time. But that's a lot better than previous years, so it's kind of a positive thing for you guys. Just to the north, we have our pink region. That's our Arctic blasts possible region. And like I said earlier in the temperature forecast, this region could get a little bit warmer later in the month. Although when the cold air does come through, it could be very potent because I do expect it to come straight from the Arctic all the way down, blasting down very quickly, which allows for those cooldowns to be very potent, indicating that it would be considered an Arctic blast. All right, to the north of you, snowstorms are possible with those very potent cold air masses that move down. That does allow for the possibility of snowfall. And actually last year we saw a huge snowstorm for this region in October as well. So I don't want to rule that out either. That purple region, snowstorms are possible this time of year. Very exciting, I know. All right, now let's move just to the east of that. Cold at times for this blue region. That includes a lot of the Ohio Valley, the interior Mid-Atlantic and Northeast areas like that. Even some of the southern Appalachian mountains there. So really cold at times. Again, your average is really lowering as we get later in the month. So obviously the later in the month we are, the colder it will likely be. Although I think even earlier in the month with those very potent cooldowns, it could get cold very, very early compared to normal. To the south of you, we have a cooler region. And the reason this isn't in the cold at times region is just because your average temperature is so much higher to the south. So it won't really be cold here in October yet. You got to wait a couple more months for the cold temperatures to really move through. It's possible, just not very likely. So it's not in the forecast, let's say. It is in the possibility though. Now, obviously for the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, we're watching the tropics for all of these regions, and you can see it actually extends way further up the East Coast than normal, and that's because in the month of October, we start to see the possibility for what we call superstorms, which is where nor'easters and tropical storms practically mix. So that allows the tropics to impact areas much further north this time of year at times. It's possible, not necessarily likely, although we will be watching it all the way up the East Coast. All right, now last but not least, we have snow possible there for the northern New England regions, also upstate New York. It's always possible. The lakes could get going early as well, so we have Buffalo in there, Erie, even Cleveland almost touching that. So with these potent cooldowns coming through, it's really unknown if we will see snow possibilities. The models have been trending at it being possible, I will tell you that, so it's certainly not impossible. And also the lake effect, we've seen it in October during some years in the past, so it's certainly not impossible. We'll be watching the lakes very, very closely. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, what is the biggest snowfall you've ever had in your region? And John Schlack said, blizzard of 2016 here in eastern Pennsylvania, 38 inches, it was insane. The only reason I picked that comment was, one, because that was an epic snowstorm, probably our generation's biggest, or one of our biggest. Secondly, I was actually in Winchester, Virginia for that storm. A lot of you already know that because I've said this multiple times, but right in the bullseye of the storm. So absolutely that storm holds a very, very close place in my heart. I love that storm. It was absolutely the experience of a lifetime as far as snowstorms are concerned. Anyway, for today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our diamond patrons, Alicia Davis, Madbirds, Dan Hazard, Cindy Klein, and Mark J, alongside our platinum patron, Donna Carnes. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video if you've watched it all the way through. I am almost positive this is my longest video of all time. We're already to 15 minutes in, and it's probably because I talked about a bunch of random stuff similar to what I'm doing currently. So I just wanted to ask you guys, if you're very dedicated to the channel, can you confirm that this is my longest video that I've ever had? Can you go back, comment if you can find one that's longer, or if you can't, maybe you've looked through all of them and this is actually the longest one. Let me know in the comments down below. Also, live streams don't count, so it has to be like a video that was not a live stream. So find one if you can. Let me know if this is the longest one ever. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.